A man jumps into a pond, only to accidentally enter a dark, mirror-like spirit realm. He climbs a stone staircase and arrives at a room fully tangled with tree roots, where he witnesses an evil spirit binding a young boy with creeping vines. There has long been a legend surrounding the royal palace of Joseon. A pond spirit dwells in the waters beside the eastern palace, who is believed to have claimed the lives of numerous crown princes. Dubai warns the king that the current situation mirrors what happened 30 years ago, when a succession of crown princes died one after another. The king has always refused to believe in supernatural forces until one fateful night, when he is haunted by a malicious ghost. The spirit clings tightly to his body, vowing to eradicate every last descendant of the royal bloodline. The king slashes his sword through the air, forcing the ghost to retreat. At that moment, a palace servant rushes in to report that the young crown prince has fallen victim to an accident. The king hurries to his side and is horrified to find the child also entangled by the vengeful spirit. Faced with undeniable proof, the king is finally forced to acknowledge the existence of ghosts and deities. To quell the supernatural calamity, the king travels to a mountain temple. The resident monk recommends a young man named Jyotian to him. Jyotian's mother was a shamaness. Legend says that during her pregnancy, the deity she served flew into a rage, inflicting excruciating spiritual torment upon her. Driven to despair, she drowned herself and her infant son in a river. Miraculously, while the shamaness perished, Jyotian survived against all odds. Ever since the incident, he has been able to see ghosts and spirits traveling between the mortal and spirit realms. Jyotian spots a ghostly bite mark on the king's right hand at a glance, confirming that the monarch is possessed by a deeply vengeful spirit. Unwilling to meddle in the dangerous affair, he initially refuses to help. However, the king secretly has him abducted and brought to the royal palace, ordering him to subdue the malevolent spirit. The pond behind Jyotian is the very site where countless crown princes lost their lives. Jyotian lies to the king, claiming the red ghost has departed elsewhere and that he needs to inspect every corner of the palace. In truth, he intends to seize the opportunity to escape, wanting no part of the perilous mission. Yet the king has long anticipated his move, and royal guards immediately block his path. The king threatens to cripple him by cutting off his feet if he attempts to flee again, stating that he must eliminate the evil spirit if he wishes to leave the palace alive. To keep the haunting incident a secret, the king publicly presents Jyotian as a royal feng shui master summoned to serve the court, and promises to assign him an assistant. That night, Jyotian grumbles under his covers, dreading that he will be paired with a fierce and intimidating helper. To his surprise, his assistant turns out to be a bright-eyed and beautiful palace maid named Xinjiang. Sharp, capable and straightforward, she yanks off his quilt and orders him to get up and start work at once. After reluctantly touring the palace grounds, Jyotian explains to Xinjiang that the pond is haunted by wronged spirits. These ghosts relentlessly haunt those responsible for their unjust deaths. As their grievances accumulate, the trapped souls become earthbound spirits, tethered to the mortal world and barred from reincarnation. Only when their resentment is dispelled can they pass on to the underworld. Back at their quarters, Jyotian tears his quilt into strips and twists them into a rope, then tells Xinjiang to fetch peach branches that grow facing east. That very night, the young crown prince is tormented by the ghost once more and falls critically ill. Rushing to the pond with the peach branches and makeshift rope, Jyotian ties one end of the rope to a tree and the other around his waist, then smears his own blood on the peach branches. He explains that the ritual will allow him to enter the conversion realm, a transitional purgatory for spirits unable to pass into the underworld, a mirror dimension parallel to the mortal world. Before diving into the pond, Jyotian whispers a secret message to Xinjiang and borrows the bell hanging on her person. He then submerges himself and sinks deeper into the water, finally breaking through into the conversion realm. The realm is swept by icy winds and thick with raging resentment. Jyotian climbs a long ladder and reaches a ruined expanse. Though it lies in ruins within the spirit realm, this desolate place manifests as the Grand Eastern Palace where the Crown Prince resides in the mortal world. Here, the evil spirit has the young Crown Prince trapped, subjecting him to unbearable agony. The peach branch transforms into a sacred blade in Jyotian's hand. He charges forward and stabs fiercely at the ghost. Yet the spirit's accumulated resentment is far too powerful. It conjures countless vines to bind Jyotian tightly. In a desperate bid to save him, Xinjiang slices open her palm in the mortal world and smears her fresh blood across her forehead. This was what Jushin whispered to her. At the sight of Xinjiang's blood, the pool ghost was drawn over and lunged straight for her. Seizing the opening, Jushin drove his peachwood sword into the spirit, wounding the vengeful ghost at last. Jushin demanded to know what deep grudge the ghost bore against the royal family. Before he could get an answer, the vengeful spirit broke free and fled into a dilapidated house. Inside lurked a soulless wraith. Jushin fought the wraith fiercely yet could not overpower it. Back in the mortal world, Xinjiang, who had failed to hear the bells chime, sensed grave danger. She hauled the rope and pulled Jushin upward, letting him break away from the wraith and return to the living realm. Once safe, Jushin told Xinjiang he had only weakened the pool ghost for the time being. To her shock, he had already seen through her true identity. She was no ordinary palace maid, she was a royal princess. From their first meeting, Jushin had noticed her delicate, soft hands. Coupled with her bearing, which bore similarities to the king's, he had pieced together the truth long ago. Xinjiang was stunned. Jishin explained he had asked her to shed blood to use royal blood as bait to lure the pool ghost. Xinjiang proposed a bargain. She would help Jishin leave the palace alive, and in return, he must extend his stay in the royal compound long enough to kill a certain person. Jishin asked how she had heard the bell ring from across realms. Xinjiang confessed she possessed powers akin to his own. Ever since childhood, she could hear the voices of ghosts, a trait that had gotten her exiled from the palace despite her royal status. She shared what she had learned as a child while confined in the torture chamber. She had heard trapped spirits utter the phrase snake retreats, dragon slain. Xinjiang was certain dragon referred to the crown prince, and snake retreats to the pool ghost. If they investigated the torture chamber, they might uncover the pool ghost's origins. Mid-conversation, Jishin sensed an ominous presence inside the room. To draw the spirit out, he tossed a rice cake onto the floor. A round, fluffy little creature scurried out. Jishin grabbed Xinjiang and rushed outside, explaining the creature was a Como Saren, a spirit that clings to living humans and drains their vital yang energy. Unexpectedly, the Como Saren followed them all the way back to Jishin's quarters. Oddly enough, the creature showed no malice toward them. Jishin warned Xinjiang that if the pool ghost regained its strength, the young crown prince would surely perish. That very day, Xinjiang received word that the Grand Dowager's quarters were also haunted. She tipped Jishin to investigate the salt storage house, where every sealed salt jar lay shattered on the ground. Xinjiang closed her eyes and listened intently, catching the cries of aggrieved palace maids. From their lingering spirits, she learned a tragic tale. 30 years prior, successive crown princes of the Eastern Palace had died mysterious deaths. Around that time, cryptic words appeared on the torture chamber wall: snake retreats, dragon slain. At the time, the queen consort, the middle palace mistress, had been born in the year of the snake. The inscription was interpreted as proof the crown princes had died by her doing. Suspecting one of the palace maids had written the message, the Grand Dowager ordered all servant women locked in the salt storage until someone confessed. A fire broke out in the salt house overnight, burning more than a dozen maids alive. To cover up the atrocity, the Grand Dowager had the maids' bones sealed inside salt jars, which were then buried beneath the storage house to contain their vengeful spirits and shield the royal line. Based on the maid's story, Xinjiang concluded the haunting was inextricably linked to the Grand Dowager. Jishin warned her the maid's restless spirits were already closing in on the Grand Dowager. Just as Jishin predicted, the vengeful ghosts broke into the Buddhist shrine where the Grand Dowager resided late that night. Jishin told Xinjiang to bring the maid's ashes to the shrine while he ventured into the conversion realm to confront the spirits. Upon entering the spirit dimension, Jishin saw the maid's ghosts closing in to take the Grand Dowager's life. He charged forward with his peachwood sword, yet the vengeful spirits swarmed him with overwhelming fury. Following the plan, Jishin shook the bell in his hand. Upon hearing the bell's chime, Xinjiang splashed water blessed against evil spirits all over the Buddhist shrine and hurled filthy water onto its floor. At last, the filthy water snuffed out the flames blazing around the vengeful ghosts just as a spell would. Taking advantage of the spirits' weakened power, Jishin thrust his peachwood sword into them, wishing these wrong palace maids could pass into the underworld and attain peaceful rebirth. Back in the mortal realm, Xinjiang found the Grand Dowager possessed by one of the maid's lingering spirits. Through the ghost's words, she finally uncovered the truth buried 30 years ago. Years before, a head palace maid had laid a deadly curse on her deathbed, vowing to return as a ferocious wraith and exterminate all heirs of the Eastern Palace. After uttering the curse, she plunged into the pond and drowned. Every maid present that day had heard her oath, marking them all as the Grand Dowager's targets. The cryptic inscription, snake retreats, dragon slain, scrawled on the torture chamber wall was merely a fabricated excuse devised by the Grand Dowager, allowing her to execute every maid who had witnessed the curse under a legitimate pretense. Armed with the full truth, Xinjiang gripped the rope tightly and pulled Jishin back from the conversion realm to the mortal world. Yet the moment Jishin opened his eyes, his gaze turned bloodshot, and he clamped his hands around Xinjiang's neck before collapsing from exhaustion. When Jishin regained consciousness a short while later, Xinjiang asked why he had attacked her. He explained that battling spirits in the conversion realm drained his vital yang energy. If depleted severely enough, he would temporarily take on a ghostly state even after returning to the living world, losing all rationality and acting out of control. Jishin then pressed Xinjiang to reveal who the person she intended to kill was. No longer hiding her motives, she admitted her target was the Grand Dowager, the woman who had murdered her birth mother. 10 years prior, the Grand Dowager had framed Xinjiang's mother. She claimed the salt jars filled with maids' bones were cursed artifacts buried by Xinjiang's mother to hex the royal household. To cover up the princess's supernatural ability to communicate with ghosts, the king banished mother and daughter from the palace under this false charge. Shortly after their exile, Xinjiang's mother was poisoned to death. Determined to uncover the true identity of the head palace maid who had drowned herself, Jishin and Xinjiang resolved to question head maid Zhang, who knew more about the Grand Dowager than anyone else. They left muddy footprints in her quarters to frighten her into spilling the pool ghost secrets. Head maid Zhang remained unfazed until the Como Saren appeared. The small spirit shifted its shape to mimic a vengeful ghost, terrifying her into confession. She revealed that the pool ghost was none other than the late king's favored head palace maid. Once a low-ranking servant girl, she had risen to immense favor after catching the king's eye. Rumors soon spread that she was secretly having an affair with a male palace attendant. The Grand Dowager tortured the attendant until he confessed to a fabricated affair. In reality, the child the maid carried belonged to the king, not the attendant. The favored maid endured brutal torture, lost her unborn baby, and drowned herself in the river consumed by hatred for the royal family. Xinjiang sensed inconsistencies in the tale. Even if the maid had truly committed adultery, cursing the entire royal line before death seemed far too extreme. Before they could unravel the full truth, the young crown prince's condition worsened drastically. That night, the king summoned Jishin once more. The Grand Dowager's birthday banquet was scheduled for the next day, and the king ordered Jishin to vanquish the pool ghost by noon without fail. Compelled by the royal command, Jishin spilled his own blood into a bronze basin full of water. He instructed a young maid loyal to Xinjiang to carry the basin near the attendant's former residence, while he slipped through a water vat to enter the conversion realm and search for the attendant's ghost. Once the young maid placed the basin by the residence, Jishin successfully crossed into the spirit realm, where he found the attendant's lingering spirit guarding something fiercely. To stop anyone from taking the object under his protection, the attendant's ghost attacked Jishin, and the two clashed violently. As Jishin neared defeat, Xinjiang drove a jujube wood sword stained with Jishin's blood into the ground. Earlier, she had spotted a jujube tree in the palace struck by lightning and recalled Jishin's words. Lightning-struck jujube wood held potent exorcising power, ideal for slaying ghosts. Wielding the sacred sword, Jishin's strength surged, turning the tide of battle and overpowering the attendant's spirit. Defeated, the attendant finally revealed the truth of the past. The favored head palace maid had never had an affair with him. The Grand Dowager had fabricated the entire scandal to ruin her. To spare his own family, the attendant had sacrificed the woman he loved. After her death, he buried the infant garments she had sewn beneath a tree outside his home, lingering beside it year after year, waiting for her spirit to return and begging for her forgiveness. Having unburdened his decades of guilt, the attendant's ghost dissolved into ashes where the jujube sword had pierced him. In the mortal world, Xinjiang dug up the infant clothes buried under the tree and smashed the water vat to signal Jishin to return. But Jishin had neglected to tie the rope around his waist before entering the spirit realm, leaving Xinjiang unable to drag his wandering soul back with him. Jishin fell unconscious, his spirit severed from his physical body. Fearing he would become a wandering ghost forever, Xinjiang tied the rope around her waist and dove into the pond, venturing into the conversion realm to retrieve his lost spirit. Deep within the spirit dimension, Jishin fell under an illusion, seeing his mother's ghost standing beside an old well. Xinjiang arrived just then. Ignoring her attempts to stop him, Jishin walked toward his mother by the well. In an instant, the woman's form twisted into a ferocious ghost, seizing Jishin tightly. As he struggled, he tumbled back into the well. Terror washed over Xinjiang. Jishin had warned her before, if his spirit strayed too far from his mortal body, he would never find his way back and might even turn into an evil wraith. Should he die within the palace and become a malicious ghost, the king would be his first target. The Grand Dowager's birthday arrived the next day. Without warning, violent winds roared up, swirling sand everywhere. Deep within the spirit dimension, Jishin's spirit lost control and slowly succumbed to darkness. He raised his sword and charged straight for the king. At the critical moment, Xinjiang threw herself between them. Enchanted by the wraith's malice, Jishin clamped his hands around her throat. Xinjiang fought free and pulled him into a tight embrace, begging him to hold on to his wish to leave the palace alive. Her embrace broke the ghost's hold over Jishin, and his spirit returned to his physical body. The moment he regained consciousness, Jishin rushed to the pond and pulled Xinjiang back from the conversion realm. She escaped unharmed. Jishin warned her never to take such reckless risks again, refusing to let anyone lose their life for his sake. Mid-conversation, Xinjiang blacked out. When she woke, she spotted Jishin standing guard outside her window. A young maid brought over food and told Xinjiang Jishin had kept watch by her door for 3 full days and nights. After they finished eating together, Xinjiang pulled out the items they had unearthed beneath the attendant's tree, baby garments sewn by the favored head palace maid for her unborn child. Jishin planned to use these clothes to ease the maid's decades-old resentment. Suddenly a sharp pain stabbed Xinjiang's back. She confessed to Jishin that she had encountered the pond ghost while crossing into the conversion realm. The spirit had scratched her back, trying to drain her vital yang energy. Worry clouded Jishin's face. Having absorbed Xinjiang's yang essence, the ghost's curse would regain its strength, growing far deadlier than before. Sure enough, word reached the king that the young crown prince's condition had worsened, and he clung barely to life. Jishin resolved to seek out the pond ghost for a final showdown, otherwise the boy would not survive the night. Once prepared, Jishin descended through the well's mouth into the conversion realm, where he found the favored head palace maid's vengeful spirit. At the sound of an infant's cry echoing nearby, the ghost reached out to cradle the sound in her arms, only to find a bull's head wrapped in swaddling cloth instead. An arrow wrapped in long cord came flying across the pond, shot by Xinjiang from the mortal world. Tied to the arrow were silk threads plucked from the maid's baby clothes, soaked with Jishin's blood to weaken the spirit's vengeful aura. As her rage faded, Jishin urged her to let go of her obsession. Slaughtering every royal heir would never bring her lost child back. She would be better off passing into the underworld to start anew. The maid seemed swayed, yet in her struggle she shoved Jishin into the pond's waters. Carried by the current, Jishin drifted safely back to the mortal realm. With the favored head palace maid's resentment dispelled, the young crown prince broke free of the spirit's grasp and recovered completely overnight. As a reward for banishing the evil pond ghost, Xinjiang begged her father the king to let Jishin leave the palace unharmed. Though the king agreed to set Jishin free, his face remained heavy with sorrow. Jishin found this strange. Over 30 long years, the pond ghost had slain 7 successive crown princes. For a spirit capable of such unbridled cruelty, it had fallen far too easily to their persuasion. He suspected the ghost might not be the true killer behind the prince's deaths. Xinjiang went to confront the Grand Dowager, laying bare every crime she had committed. To cover up her scheme to frame and murder the favored head palace maid, the Grand Dowager had fabricated the Salt Housemaid massacre, then framed Xinjiang's own mother as a scapegoat. Xinjiang believed the Grand Dowager's hatred stemmed from jealousy, provoked by Xinjiang's accusations. The Grand Dowager screamed her hidden truth aloud. The favored head palace maid had once been a servant in her natal household. In the Grand Dowager's eyes, such low-born folk were worthless. Unable to bear children herself, she could tolerate noble ladies receiving the king's favor, but never a base servant girl. After hearing her confession, Xinjiang stared at her coldly, vowing to strip the Grand Dowager of every ounce of glory she cherished. Outside the chamber, headmaid Zhang and the Grand Dowager's other attendants had been listening all along, catching every word of her enraged outburst. Having avenged her mother, Xinjiang sought an audience with the king and shared Jishin's suspicion. Was the pond ghost truly responsible for the 7 princes' deaths? She pressed the king to reveal how the former crown princes had perished. The king trembled, insisting all his elder brothers had died from the ghost's curse. The more firmly he spoke, the more uneasy Xinjiang grew, and she once again heard the wails of lingering spirits swirling around her. Tormented by the spectral voices, she fled into the woods, where she chanced upon Jishin. He had not yet left the palace. He suspected the spirit cursing the princes and wounding Xinjiang was not the favored head palace maid after all. Deep in the forest, the king rode out hunting with the young crown prince. Mid-hunt, the boy coughed up blood and collapsed, his life hanging by a thread. Xinjiang urged Jishin to flee the palace at once. Once the crown prince died, the king would hold him accountable. Jishin refused to leave. Just as Xinjiang had risked everything to save him in the conversion realm, it was now his turn to protect her.